After driving 9 hours through a snowstorm to surprise my wife on her birthday, I walked in with A. I white-knuckled the steering wheel as my car pushed through the blinding snow. 9 hours of driving through the worst winter storm Washington had seen in years, all to surprise Sarah for her 35th birthday. After 7 years of marriage, I wanted to prove I still cared. I had taken 2 days off from my software job in Seattle to make the drive to Portland. The chocolate hazelnut cake from her favorite bakery sat beside me. I pulled into our driveway, exhausted but excited. I had no idea what awaited me inside. Where are you watching from? Hit subscribe if you have ever gone out of your way for someone who did not appreciate it. Sarah and I were college sweethearts. We met during our junior year at University of Washington when we were paired up for a group project in our business ethics class. I fell for her intelligence and dry humor immediately. She had these captivating green eyes that crinkled at the corners when she laughed. After graduation, we moved into a tiny apartment in Seattle, eating ramen noodles and dreaming about our future together. I proposed 3 years later during a hiking trip to Mount Rainier. The diamond ring cost me 6 months of savings, but the look on her face made every penny worth it. Our wedding was small but perfect. Just close family and friends at a rustic venue overlooking Puget Sound. The first few years of marriage were everything I had hoped for. We traveled when we could adopted a golden retriever named Barney, and eventually saved enough for a down payment on a small house in Portland. Sarah took a job as an administrator at Providence Portland Medical Center, while I continued working as a software developer for a tech company in Seattle. The arrangement was not ideal, but we made it work with me commuting home on weekends. As my career advanced, the demands on my time increased. I often stayed in Seattle during the week, coming home only on weekends. The distance was difficult, but I believed we were building something meaningful together. The extra income allowed us to renovate our home and take nice vacations. I thought we were happy. Over the past year, I noticed Sarah becoming more distant. Our phone calls grew shorter. When I came home on weekends, she seemed distracted, often working or meeting friends. I attributed it to stress from her job, which she frequently complained about. In truth, I was too exhausted from my own work to dig deeper into what might be troubling her. That February, I decided things needed to change. Sarah would turn 35 on the 15th, and I was determined to surprise her. I told my boss I needed Thursday and Friday off, for personal reasons, arranged for her favorite cake from Petite Provence Bakery, and planned to drive down a day early to surprise her. The weather forecast warned of a winter storm, but I dismissed the severity. By the time I left Seattle that Thursday morning, the snow was already falling heavily. What normally took 4 hours stretched into a treacherous 9-hour journey. I passed countless cars and ditches and narrowly avoided several accidents myself. Twice I considered turning back, but the thought of Sarah's smile kept me going. By 6 in the evening, I finally pulled into our driveway in Portland. The snow was lighter here, but still falling steadily. My back ached from the tense drive, and my eyes burned from straining to see through the blizzard conditions. I carefully removed the cake box from the passenger seat and made my way to the side door, using my key to enter quietly. I heard voices coming from the kitchen. Sarah, and a female voice I recognized as her sister Jennifer. I smiled to myself, pleased that Sarah would not be alone on the night before her birthday. I was about to call out when I heard my name mentioned. I paused in the hallway, still hidden from view. "I wish Chuck would stop trying so hard," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly. "These grand gestures just make everything worse." "Has he called to say if he is coming down tomorrow?" Jennifer asked. "Yeah, he said something about fighting through the storm to be here for my birthday," Sarah replied, followed by a sigh. "In this weather, that is crazy. The passes are practically closed." There was a pause before Sarah spoke again, her voice dropping to a colder tone I had never heard before. "God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance." My heart stopped. The cake box nearly slipped from my hands. "Or at least a few months of silence," Jennifer replied with a snort. Then came the sound that would haunt me for months afterward. They both laughed. A casual, carefree laugh, as if they were discussing a bad movie, instead of my potential death. I stood frozen in the hallway, unable to process what I had just heard. My wife of 7 years had just wished for my death, and her sister thought it was hilarious. The cake felt suddenly heavy in my hands, the 9-hour drive a cruel joke. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about my marriage shattered. I stepped into the kitchen doorway, making no effort to hide my presence. Sarah and Jennifer sat at our kitchen island, wine glasses in hand, their backs to me. I placed the cake carefully on the counter, the soft thud causing them both to turn. The color drained from Sarah's face. "Chuck, what are you doing here?" Her voice cracked with panic, her eyes darting between me and the cake. Jennifer at least had the decency to look mortified. She stared at the floor, wine glass clutched tightly in her hand. "Surprise," I said flatly. "I drove through a blizzard to be here for your birthday." "I did not expect you until tomorrow," Sarah stammered, standing up quickly. "This is such a lovely surprise." "How long have you been here?" "Long enough," I replied, my voice unnervingly calm, even to my own ears. "Long enough to hear how you really feel." Jennifer muttered something about needing to leave and grabbed her purse. Neither Sarah nor I acknowledged her as she slipped past me and out the front door. The sound of it closing echoed through the silent house. "Chuck, what you heard. It was just dark humor. I did not mean anything by it." Sarah attempted a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You know how Jennifer and I talk sometimes." "Do I?" I asked. "Because in 7 years of marriage, I have never heard you joke about wanting me dead for financial gain." Sarah's defense crumbled immediately. "You are never here," she shouted, anger replacing her fake composure. "What kind of marriage is this? I live alone in this house, while you build your precious career in Seattle. The career that pays for this house." I shot back, my own anger rising. "The job that funded the kitchen renovation you insisted we needed. The income that pays for your yoga retreats and organic food delivery. I never asked for any of that." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I asked for a husband who is present, who notices when I am unhappy, who actually knows what is happening in my life. And wishing I would die in a car crash is your solution." She flinched at my words. "I did not mean it. I was just venting." "Venting," I repeated. "Is that also what you are doing with Alex from your office? Just venting?" Her eyes widened in surprise. "How do you know about Alex?" A cold weight settled in my stomach. I had mentioned the name as a shot in the dark, based on a call I had overheard months ago. Her reaction confirmed what I had suspected, but never wanted to believe. "I did not," I said quietly, "but I do now." We argued for hours, revealing wounds and resentments that had been festering beneath the surface of our seemingly stable marriage. Sarah claimed she felt trapped and neglected. I accused her of taking me for granted, while enjoying the lifestyle my hard work provided. We went in bitter circles, until exhaustion overtook us both. "I cannot stay here tonight," I finally said, grabbing my coat. "I need space to think." "Where are you going?" Sarah asked, her voice small. "Does it matter? You would prefer a few months of silence anyway, right?" I checked into a hotel near the airport, one of those anonymous places where people stay when they have early flights to catch. The irony was not lost on me that I would be the one taking flight this time. I lay awake all night, replaying our marriage in my mind. The signs of disconnection I had ignored. The growing silences I had attributed to comfortable familiarity rather than emotional distance. The increasing frequency with which Sarah found reasons to visit friends when I came home on weekends. By morning, I had made my decision. I returned to the house at 7, knowing Sarah would still be asleep. She never woke before 8 on her days off. I packed a suitcase with essential clothes and my important documents. I took our dog Barney's food and leash, knowing Sarah had never particularly bonded with him. On the kitchen counter, I left a brief note: "I need time to think. We'll contact you when I am ready to talk." The drive back to Seattle was easier with clearer weather, though my emotional landscape was now the true storm. I checked into an extended stay hotel near my office and called my boss to explain I would be working remotely due to personal circumstances. Mark was understanding, having gone through a divorce himself 2 years prior. For the first week, I maintained complete radio silence. I turned off notifications for Sarah's calls and texts. I asked mutual friends not to relay messages. I needed this time to process the betrayal without her influence or excuses. My phone buzzed constantly those first few days. Sarah's messages evolved from angry demands to know where I was, to increasingly worried texts about my well-being. By the end of the week, she was pleading for a chance to explain. I read every message but replied to none. Instead, I channeled my energy into rebuilding myself. I found a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma and booked twice-weekly sessions. Dr. Peterson helped me understand that while Sarah's words were unforgivable, our marital problems had two sides. I had been emotionally unavailable, using work as an escape from intimacy. This did not excuse her betrayal, but it helped me see the fuller picture. The second week of our separation, I began the process of reclaiming my identity outside of my marriage. I reconnected with college friends living in the Seattle area, people I had neglected, while focusing on work and trying to maintain my long-distance relationship. Their support surprised me, many admitting they had worried about my isolation over the years. I consulted with a lawyer about separation options. Jacob Goldstein was blunt about protecting my assets and documenting everything. Words spoken in anger reveal truths that politeness conceals, he told me. Take her at her word and act accordingly. I began the paperwork for a legal separation, not yet ready to file for divorce, but preparing for that possibility. My parents flew in from Phoenix when I finally told them what had happened. My mother always. Sarah's defender was uncharacteristically silent after hearing the insurance comment. My father, who had always maintained careful neutrality about my marriage, finally admitted he had concerns about how Sarah treated me for years. Son, I never said anything because you seemed happy, but no one should speak about their spouse that way, even in jest. Sarah's attempts to contact me grew more desperate. She enlisted mutual friends, sent emails to my work account, and even called my parents. I maintained my position, responding only with brief texts confirming I was safe but needed space. When she threatened to file a missing person report, I had my lawyer contact her to advise against making false reports. During this time, I discovered parts of myself I had neglected. I joined weekend hiking groups, exploring the Cascade Mountains, finding peace in the physical exertion and natural beauty. I volunteered with a tech community program teaching coding to kids from underserved neighborhoods. The gratitude in those young eyes when they created their first program reminded me why I loved technology in the first place before it became just a paycheck. I made new friends through these activities, people who knew me as Chuck the hiker or Chuck the volunteer, not Chuck the workaholic with marital problems. I started eating better, cooking for myself, instead of surviving on takeout. I even adopted a second dog, a shelter mutt named Cooper, who bonded instantly with Barney. Exactly 17 days after I left Portland, a package arrived at my office. My assistant brought it in with a concerned look. "It smells like perfume," she said warily. Inside was a small box containing my grandfather's watch that I had left behind, along with several photos from happier times. Beneath these mementos was a 12-page handwritten letter. Sarah's writing covered both sides of each page, detailing her regret and attempting to explain her words. She wrote about feeling abandoned over the years, as my career took precedence over our relationship. She admitted to developing resentment that festered into bitterness. She confessed to an emotional entanglement with Alex, her co-worker, but swore nothing physical had occurred. Most significantly, she acknowledged that her comment about the insurance money had revealed a truth she had been hiding, even from herself. She had fallen out of love with me and did not know how to admit it. The letter ended with a plea to meet and talk in person. After 3 weeks of silence and significant personal reflection, I felt ready to face her. I suggested a coffee shop in Tacoma Neutral Territory, halfway between Seattle and Portland. When I arrived at Anthem Coffee that Saturday, Sarah was already there. She looked smaller somehow, her usual confident posture diminished. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she had been sleeping poorly. She stood when she saw me, uncertainty in her movement. "Thank you for coming," she said, as I sat across from her. I was not sure you would. I almost did not, I replied honestly. The conversation that followed was unlike any we had ever had in our relationship. For perhaps the first time we spoke with complete honesty, without concern for sparing feelings or maintaining peace. Sarah cried as she explained her growing unhappiness and how she had channeled it into resentment, rather than addressing it directly. I remained calm as I described the devastating impact of overhearing her words, and the subsequent realization that our marriage had been failing for years without either of us fully acknowledging it. I have filed for legal separation, I told her after 2 hours of conversation. My lawyer will be contacting you next week. The shock on her face was genuine. Separation. Not even counseling first. Chuck, we can fix this. I shook my head slowly. Some things cannot be unheard, Sarah. Your words that night revealed a truth neither of us had been willing to face. This marriage has been over for a long time. It was one stupid comment. People say things they do not mean when they are frustrated. It was not just the comment I explained. It was hearing the casual cruelty in your voice. It was realizing I had become someone you could speak about that way. And most importantly, it was recognizing that neither of us has been truly happy for years. The separation process began the following week. I found a permanent apartment in Seattle and started moving my belongings from our Portland house. Sarah vacillated between angry resistance and desperate attempts at reconciliation. She sent flowers to my office, suggested couples therapy, and even offered to quit her job and move to Seattle. I maintained my decision with a calm I had not known I possessed. The therapy sessions were helping me understand that our breakup, while painful, was ultimately necessary for both of us. Dr. Peterson helped me see that staying together out of fear, habit, or guilt would only prolong our mutual unhappiness. True growth often comes from our most painful experiences, she told me during one session. You are rebuilding yourself now, creating a life based on what truly matters to you, not what you thought you should want. That rebuilding process continued throughout the spring and into summer. I established a new routine centered around work, my volunteer teaching outdoor activities, and my growing circle of friends. I adopted healthier habits, both physically and emotionally. I learned to recognize and express my feelings rather than burying them in work. 6 months after that fateful snowy night, Sarah and I met with our lawyers to finalize the divorce agreement. We had agreed to sell the Portland house and split the proceeds. I would keep my retirement accounts and investments, while she would receive a cash settlement. The material division proved simpler than the emotional one. After the meeting, Sarah asked if we could speak privately. We walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench overlooking the river. I want you to know that I never meant those words, she said, her voice steady but sad. I spoke out of frustration, not genuine desire. I never wanted you harmed. I believe you, I replied. But those words came from somewhere real, Sarah. They revealed how broken our connection had become, that you could even think such things, much less say them aloud. She nodded slowly. I know. I have been seeing a therapist too. She is helping me understand my patterns of passive aggression and avoidance. I should have told you years ago that I was unhappy instead of letting it fester. We both made mistakes, I acknowledged. I prioritized work over our relationship. I missed signs that should have been obvious. I chose comfort and avoidance over difficult conversations. We sat in silence for several minutes, watching the river flow past. It struck me how appropriate the metaphor was. Life continuing to move forward regardless of the obstacles in its path. Are you happy now? Sarah finally asked. I considered the question carefully. I am getting there. I have been rebuilding my life in ways that feel authentic. What about you? I am trying, she said. I miss you sometimes. Not the us we became, but the us we were in the beginning. That couple does not exist anymore, I said gently. We both changed. As we parted ways that day, I felt a sense of closure I had not expected. The anger that had sustained me through the initial separation had transformed into something more nuanced. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. What happened had needed to happen. The year following what I came to call the snowstorm incident brought unexpected growth. My company offered me a promotion that actually required less travel and provided better work-life balance. I developed meaningful friendships that offered the emotional support I had been missing. I even reconnected with Megan, a college friend who had moved to Seattle after her own divorce. Her understanding of my journey created a foundation for a connection deeper than any I had experienced before. Looking back now, I recognize that painful ending as the beginning of something essential. I learned that relationships require more than financial stability and comfortable routines. They need presence, vulnerability, and continuous tending. I learned to pay attention to warning signs rather than dismissing them for convenience. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes relationships have served their purpose in our lives and holding on too long harms both people. Sarah and I occasionally exchange emails now, brief updates about mutual friends or practical matters. There is no animosity, just the recognition that we were not meant to be each other's forever. The pain of her words that snowy night ultimately guided me to a more authentic life, one built on self-respect and genuine connection, rather than obligation and appearances. Life rarely follows the path we expect. Sometimes a treacherous journey through a snowstorm leads not to celebration, but to painful truth. And sometimes that truth, however devastating in the moment, becomes the map to a better destination than we ever imagined possible. I hope my story resonates with some of you out there. Have you ever experienced a painful truth that ultimately led you to a better place? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey touched something in you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories of transformation, and share with someone who might need to know they are not alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most painful endings create the space for the most beautiful beginnings.